Morning. I'm here with the wonderful Nigel Cliff. Now, what we're going to talk today is about the research report that Pitch 121 put out, and Nigel has scrutinized it and he's got some thoughts and ideas, some key takeaways, and that's what we're going to be chatting about today. We're going to have a conversation over the next sort of 20 minutes, but it all depends on your questions and comments. So as we go, please add your comments, add your questions, and I promise that Nigel and I will stop gassing and answer them as we go. But for anybody who doesn't know Nigel, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Laura. Good morning, everybody. Nigel Cliff, lovely to meet you if we've not met before. I'm a LinkedIn trainer, consultant, coach, mentor. I've been doing this full time for 12 years. It's all I do. And yeah, you know where to find me.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted that you've, first of all, that you took the time to really dig into the report. So thank you for that. We have some comments coming in. Hello. Where are you coming in from as well? That really interests me. So just let me know. Are you a LinkedIn trainer yourself? Are you just a LinkedIn geek? Are you just looking to increase your connection acceptance rate on LinkedIn? So, Nigel, we're talking about getting connected on LinkedIn. Do you think that was a good topic for the report? Is that something that is helpful, do you think?
Absolutely. I think it's a very nuanced topic that often gets sort of, overlooked in terms of how well you can treat the solution as a part of your strategy. I think it's a great topic to dive into. I think what it made me do was think really hard and deeply about actually, there's more to this than I realized. When I start writing down and you're putting some thoughts around it, I created 2 pages of notes around a simple connection request. How's that possible? Call me nerdy. It's what I do.
Well, I love the topic because it's the KPI that really matters. Because if you don't get connected, they don't get to see your post. You can't have that ongoing conversation. So what were your immediate thoughts when you were reading through this? What were you thinking that, oh, yeah, now that's made me think about this particular thing that can help everybody?
Yeah, I guess my starting point was I was thinking actually of you when you put the figures together, thinking, oh, would it be nice if the report had have showed some distinct differences in approach, and the figures came out so close. And I'm thinking, well, what's there to talk about then? But actually, there's an awful lot to talk about. And it made me reflect more deeply about actually this whole subject requires. So looking at from above a little bit more than perhaps than we have done, or we typically do. And I think the difference for me is it depends on where you are on your LinkedIn journey, whether you're somebody who's approaching LinkedIn with not much experience, or you've really not taken it very seriously. Now you want to wake up to the positive value of LinkedIn, irrespective of age. And it also depends on what your role is and what your goals are. I always come back to this, question: what does good look like on LinkedIn? I say this so many times because a strategy will always depend on what your ultimate goals to be achieved are. Mm-hmm. So in this regard, are you in sales? Are you a thought leader? Are you developing that sort of CEO presence to garner influence on the world stage? Are you looking to change career? Are you seeking talent? There's lots of reasons why people would have a different strategy, and I think depending on where you are on the journey and what your objectives are, depend how you approach this matter. And my experience, reflects what yours determined, and in that when I operate a connections strategy for clients who are early on that journey, we typically have around a 40% connection acceptance rate. But I know that your report showed a lower percentage, so it might be worth just digging into that. And what difference is between, the figure of, was it 26%, I think, and the 40%. So that's worth exploring. I thought you comment on that and I'll join you.
Yeah. Well, we looked at 170,000 data sources and found that whether you put a note in when you send a connection or whether you left it completely blank, it was pretty much the same, and that floating around the 26, 27%. However, when we work with our clients, there are a whole load of things that we do before we ever send the connection request, and be all the things that you recommend the clients do as well. The good profile pic, a profile that is complete. It's got a background banner. It says what you do, and actually the headline works really hard as well. And I would say that the headline probably affects the connection acceptance rate more than the message, and yet people don't change it up or experiment with it anywhere near as much as the message. So I'm sure you've got some more things to add on what increases the connection acceptance.
For sure. No, I mean, I guess I should add to the perspective that we're sharing here is that I'm likely to be working on behalf of clients for whom I've already optimized those elements. So we've got, a great profile photo, we've got a background image, we've absolutely optimized the headline, and we've optimized the about section for the context of the algorithmic SEO benefit, of what we're talking about in there to match the algorithmic connection with our audience of the future. So the assumption is already made when I'm making that quote of 40% that we've already sort of done that work. So that's really important to understand. If you're coming from zero and you've got a poor headline that's not optimized, and you're just hitting that connection request button, especially with no personalized message, you're probably going to be looking to get 20%. And I think that makes a big difference for me. In fact, I was having this conversation only with a group of people this week. We're in business development, global organization, business development, and almost every one of them started their profile with business development executive or something of that ilk. And some of them said no more. That was it. I'm thinking, that from a connection request perspective, you're going to be turned off by the people who you're trying to, be in front of, because they're thinking, I'm just going to get, one way or another, I'm going to be, pitched at, even when it's done well, from somebody who starts off with that headline. So why not be, more insightful with that headline? Why don't you sort of turn it around? It's what benefit, what problems can you solve for the people you're trying to connect? Make that the leading, part of your headline, and then if it's in business development executive, it's actually job title. It's probably going to be your job title in the experience section anyway. That's fine, but you've not led with it. On your headline, you can lead with what's going to be the benefit to this person to be connected with me, and if you can, and obviously that's going to match your goals, the thing you set out to achieve, and I think that in itself is going to give you a massive uplift in personalized message requests, without doubt. And I think that's the nuance that I think we for me it's good to dive into, because this where you are on the journey, who your audience type is, whether you're looking for mass numbers of connections because you've got only a few already, and we all know that connections in itself is not a goal. I think I've got something like 8,500 connections, which when I look at people who do what I do is really quite low. And because I reject more wishes to connect that people have of me than I accept, and I always have done, because I always figured that it wasn't, having a large network in itself was not particularly of great value. I do understand algorithmically, of course, that the bigger the network, the greater benefit you have in kicking off with the likelihood of a greater number of connections seeing your posts and all of this. But still, if those, if I've got 100,000 connections, but the net worth of those connections is pretty low, and they're not ever going to likely to my client, and there's no resonance with them, then what's the point in having them anyway? I'm very happy with my 8,500 connections. I could never do business with 10%, possibly even 1% of those connections, in truth. So I don't need to keep growing them. But I, as a strategy, I do like to keep adding connections, but only on I don't think I do a couple a week now. Apart from those I accept, I reach out to very few, because for me, it's about nurturing the network. But that's me. I've done this professionally for quite a long time. Most of the time, we're guiding people early on those journeys, and the strategy for them will be quite different. I think that's what we've got to be cognizant of.
Yeah, and one thing that was in the report is that second degree connections are more likely to connect than third degree connections. And so in that regard, having enough second degree connections, and if your decision maker that you're trying to contact, if you're a salesperson, is third degree, you're much better off getting connected to their colleagues who are likely to be connected to them, who are your second degree, to sort of take your time and leap through. And I think everything that we talk about, we always say, yeah, it's a balance, isn't it? Because you don't want loads of irrelevant connections, but actually the amount of salespeople that I've, gone to their sales navigator, right? Who are the people that you've got on your list to connect to from this company? And it's 3 decision makers. And it's like, well, that person's not active on LinkedIn. That person's a third degree. You're going to have to grow the number of people in that account that you're connecting to in order to either get a referral into this person who's inactive, or just have a chance of connecting to that person who's way out of your sort of I like what you're saying on the video in the report about the digital peripheral. I think that connects to that a little bit as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That strategy you suggested is one I've not particularly ever ventured into, because if it's a relationship with a new customer, you've got to start that somewhere. But absolutely, I get your point, and thank you. I'm going to think of that more widely from here on. No, I think my way around this would be to increase this digital peripheral vision factor that I've talked about, on a few occasions, and it's if I send a sort of an out of field connection request to somebody that's never heard of me, never seen me, then again, the chances of it becoming an accepted connection request are probably pretty low. Whereas if I've created a proximity by being engaged in their network, viewing their profile, if let's assume this person does post and is reasonably active, then popping in on their content, either the content that they've written or indeed the content they're engaging with, it increases the likelihood that when you comment on a subject which they've spoken about, a notification may well end up in their inbox that Nigel Cliff has commented on something you've commented on. Who's this Nigel Cliff? And there's that instant sort of, touch point of almost nothing. But if you add those little moments together over time of commenting, viewing a profile, being active on it in the digital world of that person, even if it's not on their posts, just becomes, it's psychologically I see people, on the outskirts of my activity and thinking, I've seen them quite a few times. That's really quite nice. Who is that person that's taking an interest? So if that person then reached out and I've kind of noticed them, particularly if I've and this is powerful, if I've shown the signal of doing a return view, that's your moment to send that connection request. Hey, thanks for checking out my profile. Listen, I've really enjoyed, some of the topics that we both found ourselves having a conversation about. I'd be honoured to connect, Laura. If you're up for that. And the percentage likely at that point is probably in the 90s, because you feel to have been in the networking room together. It's exactly like being in a networking room. The fact you've gone to this place means let's be a friend. Whereas if you come out of the world from nowhere, I don't talk to strangers. It's probably how you approach it. So I think that peripheral vision, digital peripheral vision thing is for me is really important, particularly if, and again, this is another perspective that comes into it. How many clients do you actually need, to make your business really successful? If we're talking hundreds, obviously you can have a different perspective of connecting with lots of people. But if a mere handful of new customers could change your business in the next 12 months, then you can afford to be patient. You can have a long-term view of connecting gently with a person and building up that value. In such a manner as to not need to add, to be working on 500, actually, when you could be working on 50, for example. I can be a lot more, strategic by adding value and watching closely 50 of my hot prospects. Then I can follow 500. For me, the numbers just expand ridiculously, and I can't track that many people. I can use Sales Navigator to help me, but actually, for me, mostly it's a bit more. precise, and I'd rather focus in on fewer people who I'd really like to influence. And I have proved that myself, many times over in the course of the last, ever since long I've been on LinkedIn, since 2007. If I really am determined to make a connection with a person, however, and I've got a few on the go all the time, without naming names, there's a very, very senior person who's in the public eye who I want to have a relationship with, and I'm gently working on it. And when that person posts, I'm making valuable comments where I can on the subject matter. It's not my field of expertise, but it allows me to just build that closeness. So when I ask for that connection request, I'm likely to get it above all the others that person receives. That probably just goes straight into the rubbish bin.
Yeah. We've got a question on this from Mark, who says, how many words need to be in a comment for maximum effect? Do you have a view on that?
Yes, more than a couple. So, great nice comments. This is super valuable. All those, really crummy comments that you see are just an absolute waste of space. No, if you're going to comment, do it with some value. Make it, depends on where you're viewing it, of course. But 4, 5, 6 lines. Add context. Add something that takes the conversation on a little bit further. I spend a lot of time in comments. In fact, I haven't posted for weeks. LinkedIn train, I haven't posted for weeks. Can you imagine? But I've been on holiday and doing other things. Life is busy. But I've not stopped commenting. And when I comment, I always comment with value, as opposed to just make a comment for its own sake. Because as we now know, you can see the impressions number you're getting on your own comments. And what's staggering is the amount of impressions I'm getting on comments when thoughtfully crafted. They're in the hundreds, if not thousands. And I'm thinking, this is insane. Somebody has done a great post, which has got an average, an average number of impressions. You don't know the impressions, but I can see the comments and I can see the reactions of that. So you might assume a certain impressions value behind that. And I'm getting the impressions on a comment that I might imagine they're getting on the post. I mean, what's not to love? That is absolutely, I think when LinkedIn brought that feature in, yes, thank you. And that proves to me, if you like, that the value of well written, well placed comments is equal to, and a lot easier, let's be honest, than publishing continuous posts. Broadcasting to people, is not the way forward. I think people are here to learn, to grow, to listen to people of experience, and having that input in comments is fabulous. So thanks, great question, whichever Mark that is.
Thank you for that, Mark. I think that the challenge that we've got with this is that there are a lot of people who only post when they're putting out a job role, or they post something that's so promoting their company that's so niche to their industry that it's kind of disingenuous for you to put a value-led comment on something, I don't know, about medical devices, and you don't know anything about that, but they're a good customer for you. And how I don't know whether you agree with me on this, but how I try to justify this is personal posts you should really be looking out for. And this justifies why you should go a bit wider within this target company to find the people who are putting stuff out that you can put comments on, because the colleagues will see those comments. But the other thing is, sometimes it is okay to do a supportive comment, because if somebody's put out a job role, it could be that could be relevant to your network. So you could be like, I'm sharing this with my network, and you just get a little bit of reciprocal, just a little bit of thanks for your support when their post is diving and nobody else is engaging on it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I can see that value in, when you've sort of got 25 reactions and no comments, and you make a comment, pretty much all those people who reacted are going to get a notification that you've commented. So, you sit on top of the box beneath, and you're there in full display. I don't use that tactic personally. I would probably steer away from that kind of post where it almost looks like you're doing it to have that presence alone, and that therefore to me it looks just a little bit cheap. So listen, I often say there are thousands of ways to cut and dice LinkedIn to make it successful. It's just not the way I would typically do it. I would rather wait for something where I can add proper value than just be present with a comment that is probably low level for that purpose. But again, if I was coming from the angle of trying to develop a relationship with a business with a number of people, and I saw the opportunity to do that, then I would take it. Absolutely. It's just not been my, I always got to try and take myself out of this, because what I would do for myself is this. But not posting for weeks. Can you imagine me ever telling a client, "Oh yeah, don't need to post. That's fine." I would never say that to a client. It's a bit like the decorator syndrome. You go to the decorators and leave the house decorated. It's a bit of LinkedIn training in posting. What's going on?
You're posting today, so that's fine. I think with the there's always a like that you can put on in a support, and I think as soon as it feels a bit like weird, the comment, then you should probably stop. Like if they were advertising a job for a like an engineer, I don't have a network full of engineers, so it wouldn't make sense for me to say show me my network. But if it's like a really cool marketing job in EMEA, then I've got lots of marketers in EMEA who are in my network, and it kind of is a bit more logical. So I think that it's with caution, but my view is it can have a little bit of a positive effect on getting your connection accepted.
That's why I love conversations like this, because we never stop learning, from sharing other people's perspectives. It always just challenges your own, and hopefully people on the call are finding the same. At the end of any conversation, you go, okay, I've learned from that. What am I going to do? And the more perspectives, the wider number of views and methods of operating this thing we listen to, the better we can make our own decisions, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we've got another question. Thank you, Mariana. Could you comment on the difference between posting from your personal profile versus company posts? Now, we're going quite far from the get connected topic here, so we don't really want to spend too long on this, because we're time is marching on. But any quick thoughts on this, Nigel?
Well, you're going to take me off at a tangent here. Anybody who's heard me speak at all would know that I share very little confidence in anything to do with company page posting. It gets no genuine engagement. The people who engage are typically employees. Yes, it's got to be done, and that's fine. But true, authentic relationship building happens from personal pages. I can't remember the last time I posted from my company page. I just don't care about it. And you may say, well, you work for yourself, Nigel, a single employee business. That's true, that's fine. But I still advocate this principle, even if you're a large business, because it's only the extremely large businesses who are paying LinkedIn lots of dollars that ever get their content shared on a wider basis. Or, of course, if you're paying for the privilege of it. Otherwise, it doesn't get, I never see company page content shared in my feed or in my notifications. No. So that tells me that the work to comment and be active in company page silos is in an echo chamber.
Yeah,
it doesn't count. I know I'm on the end of a scale here. There are other people who say, "Oh no, company pages, there's a whole strategy around that." And I've listened to people, Michelle Raymond and many others who I hugely respect around, yes, they're powerful advocates for company page activity. And probably you have a different view here as well. But that's just, I'm helping individuals largely carve out, a position of strength. Even in large organizations with whom I work, yes, you've got your marketing department, but even the conversation I had on Wednesday with the marketing director was, there's a limit to what I can do, she said. The fact that we're now getting individuals on board is going to help me hugely achieve the goals we're set out to achieve. So I've never had a conversation that has ever challenge that from my perspective, so yes, I'll stop here.
Well, I mean, we only do personal profiles in our agency. We if we ever have a company page request, we say that that's not our bag. For our own company page, it was actually Michelle J. Raymond's tip about commenting as the company page that we've really taken to that. But I thought I have to give the company page a voice, and so it's like, I'm just a little company page. What could I do? You personal profile pages, you've got so much more reach and features, and that's kind of taking a bit of a life of its own, which is quite fun. But yeah, we've really gone for the comments. I do think that I want to keep it active. So if anybody comes to look, they can see what we're doing as a company. Candidates, they might look as not just customers, but yeah, in terms of time, you've got these wonderful personal profiles that can go so much further. That we've got some brilliant comments coming in, and I'm really aware of we're running short of time. So Chloe, thank you for your question. It's not exactly on connection acceptance. We do have another question from Abby that is about connection acceptance. So Chloe, we'll come back to your question in the comments afterwards. And if anybody else has got any more comments and questions, both Nigel and I can pop in. Right. And what Abby has said is there a simple way to keep track of who has accepted our connection requests? I love this question because LinkedIn does not make it easy. I often send 5, 6 at the same time from comments they've made. And I liked when they accept, I'd like to message them, but often forget who I've sent them to. There's a two-parter there, isn't it? Do you want me to start on the...
Yeah, please. You kick in on that. Yeah.
So if you've got freelinkedin.com, you go to My Network and then you go to Connections, and that's where you see in date order the people who have recently connected. If you go to, you've got the receipt, and then you've got the My Network, see all in the invitations, and you've got your sent, and you can see all the ones that you've sent. So you just have to periodically count up the ones that are still pending, add those onto the ones that have accepted, and do a ratio calculation where it's over to get the percentage. So it feels a bit complicated, and it's not an exact science because you're just doing it over a time frame of, say, 2 weeks. I let people give about 2 weeks to accept. The other way that I would be doing it is on Sales Navigator. You put them into a lead list, and even if they're in another lead list, if you're testing a certain message, you can add them to a second lead list, and you can just go to that lead list. You see who is first and second, and then you get your ratio a whole lot quicker. So yeah, they don't make it easy, do they?
No, I'm so glad you explained that. Yeah, you got me. You got me off the hook there. Yeah, the other thing I would say is, 2 weeks is not that long to leave it there pending as an invitation request, but I would clean that list up. If somebody hasn't connected after 2 months, I would definitely take them off the list, because I think there's a something in the algorithm somewhere, or a suggestion that if you have a lot of unaccepted connection requests pending, it doesn't bode well on your profile as far as an algorithmic sort of thing that LinkedIn view your profile with. I can't quantify how that is, but it stands to reason. If I've sent 50 connection requests and only 10 have accepted, and there are 40 still there, not rejected but still pending, it's not a good look. So yeah, that's just a thing. But yeah, I'm conscious the time is running short, very short.
We are, and we've got loads. We've got quite. I'm wondering whether we go over and forget the on-demand half an hour cutoff, or whether, because there's some great questions here.
Fine by me, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So keep these questions coming. We're going to go against our own. So what happens when you're doing a LinkedIn Live is you can talk for as long as you like, but when it comes onto the on demand, it cuts it off at half an hour. So that's why we've got this half an hour. But we're going to keep going because there's questions, and let's do it. Okay. So we've got actually we did have the other half of Abby's question, which is I forget who I've sent them to, and for me, I think that's a reason to put a note in, because I'm kind of the same. If I didn't put a note in and they don't come through on my inbox, then I might not remember to go and check my recently connected. Because if you put a message in, you'll see them coming through on your inbox as soon as they've connected. Yeah. But yeah, it is a problem forgetting to check that who's connected if you don't have a message, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's because I always do send a message, a message with a connection request always, unless I'm meeting somebody at an event in person, we're just going to connect on the spot. But generally speaking, I would always send a message. Therefore, when they accept, I always get a notification, so I would never forget. And for me, even if they accept the request following my message to them and they don't respond with a message, I send a message saying thank you. Just common courtesy, say, hey, appreciate you connecting, Laura. I look forward to seeing you around on LinkedIn or something that just like. Yeah. So again, it stays as again, another useful part of this, I think you may have touched on this already, is it stays as in your memory for when you go back to that person, think, how did we connect? What, oh yes, I remember, it was me initiated it, or did they initiate it? So it serves as a useful reminder if you've got that notification there as how that relation started. And I find that so valuable because, we're not in this for the short term, we're in this for the long game. And some people contact me after 10 years. I had a lovely incident a few months ago now, where a lady that I trained 10 years ago, whose name I did recall when she got in touch on LinkedIn. You probably don't remember me, but I just wanted to say, Nigel, how much as a result of your training 10 years ago, my career took off and went in the right direction. And, I put so much down to you, and I've never taken the trouble to thank you. And I just thought, I'm going to take this moment to after 10 years. And I went, I could go back and I could see the dialogue we'd had 10 years ago. How fantastic was that? So, yeah, that's a really useful feature.
Yeah. And in the research that we did, a really important point was, add a note, don't add a note about the same connection acceptance rate over a lot of data. However, the reply rate was more than double when you added a note. So again, it goes back to what you were saying about why are you doing this? Are you wanting that ongoing conversation? But also, even if you're doing it more for thought leadership and you're not necessarily trying to generate the conversation in the inbox, one thing that we have found that if we don't do a follow-up message, the posts are less likely to come up in your feed. So there is a connection between who sees your post and who you've been messaging in the inbox. And that second message, even if it's just great to connect, actually makes that difference, which is, quite interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. You get what you ask for on LinkedIn. If you build those relationships with people through DMs, through commenting, engaging, you'll get that repeat content from that person coming into your feed. So which is why, you craft your own environment on LinkedIn, which is why the people who sort of critical of LinkedIn, often say, oh, it's just like Facebook. That tells me you're just not engaging in a strategic manner that LinkedIn actually knows what you're interested in. So it's only when you take the trouble to put something in, do you begin to get something out. Oh, never thought of it that way. Oh, yeah, kind of obvious really, but that's so important. If you're not actively engaged and you're not giving the algorithms an indication through your profile and through your activity what you're interested in, then you're going to struggle.
Yeah. And actually, I find that I make more meetings from putting a personal post out than I do a business post. But it's all about the follow-up in the inbox. So because sometimes that personal post just sparks something in somebody personally and they engage on your post, and because they've gone first, and then it's a much more natural, then you go back, thanks for liking your post, and you're like, do you know what, I noticed that you do this, it might be worth us having a chat. It's a really easy way to book meetings in the inbox. Whereas if you're promoting your company, then you don't get as many likes from your network. If your network's your network has to be relevant, of course, doesn't it? Which goes back to your earlier comment. We've got another question. Can we keep it going?
Yeah.
Okay, this is from Chris O. Thank you, Chris. Our director has 2,500 connections, and most of the stuff he sees is from company pages or updates shared from them. I agree there's value to comment as company pages, which tons of people don't realize they can do. Now so Chris, can you just follow up with this? Are you saying that your director is seeing company page posts more than personal pages? Is it that maybe he's seeing them as promoted and they're advertised to? Is that what it is, or is it that he's seeing the comments from the pages? I don't know whether there's any other insights from that one.
I think while Chris is possibly answering that, my perspective on that would be that the director with the 2,500 connections is 100% lurker. So he's not fitting into the category of those people I just described, who are giving a steer to the algorithms of what they'd like to see. They're only ever lurking and consuming what appears in front of them. So if that director began to adopt a strategy of engaging with his target audience or his industry peers, his colleagues' content or whatever, he would instantly have a different experience of LinkedIn. He wouldn't just get the default company page content, which he in his world, he thinks that's all that ever happens. He must think all CEOs have the experience he has, and that's all they ever see. Absolutely not. This is where you can carve your own experience on LinkedIn, but you have to put a little bit in. And, as we know, sadly or fortunately, depending which way you look at it, 90% plus, of LinkedIn members are lurkers. That and especially those in senior roles, which makes, connecting and engaging with senior people more difficult, because, of course, as soon as they put their head above the parapet, they're going to get bombarded with people trying to pitch slap them. So they stay out of the game, and understandably so. So, it becomes a more complex and nuanced strategy to make an impact on those people than you might normally, wish for. But that's where it starts to get clever. And now if we raise the bar, we can do things much more cleverly than the average person will to achieve greater things.
And actually, this reminds me of something you were saying earlier about that you use your notifications and the double bell ringing, don't you? Quite like as your to-do list, which I think is really interesting, often overlooked.
Yeah. So the notification for me is where I spend most of my life. I do look at the feed occasionally, but I've got so much coming into notifications. And what I do, Laura, is I use the three dots, go to delete. So if the item is a quick, like, somebody's reacted to a post, nice to know, quick delete, 2 seconds. What that does is it means I can use my notifications feed as an inbox for things I want to go back to and respond to. Yeah. So I find going onto LinkedIn for a few minutes here, a few minutes there, when I'm traveling, 5 minutes for waiting for a train, just go to notifications, clean that feed up. Oh, there's something that I want to go back to. And that's a tip I recommend, because it means I've got things I positively want to go back and engage with. So that's one. The double bell I think is great. It's not totally reliable. I think many people reflect on that, but for the most part, it's a great way of ensuring that you're going to get to see an important person to use content. So and here's a neat tip. I don't know if is widely known, but you don't need to be connected to have the privilege of clicking the bell. You can simply follow somebody. So if you've got the intention of building a relationship to wish to get connected in the future with a person, then simply clicking the follow button opens up the bell option. Click on the bell, open up to see all, double click it, two bells appear. Now you will get notified on the first posts that person publishes, for sure. What tends to happen thereafter, it falls into the category downstream of being much like the rest of the content. If you don't engage with that content or view it, and that's part of the engagement process, then you may stop seeing it too. So it's not a guarantee, but I find it a really useful sort of nudge in the early stage of a relationship with a new person to continuously see their content. So I highly advise the use of double bell, even though it's not always perfect.
And do you know what John Asperian has just said? That I've ended up ditching the bells just to help keep my notifications under control. probably, John, have you been double belling a lot and then it sort of got out of control?
Yeah, this is something I do advise when I talk about this. Sorry, time is always a difficulty here. I make a list of people I double bell. So there is no way of going and, to my knowledge, John, please tell me if there is. I don't know how to find all the people who I'm double belling. It's a funny expression. So I kind of encourage people who start using this as a strategy to make a list of people so that they can actually go back and cull that list when needed. Because yes, if you're double belling hundreds of people, the algorithm will at some point suspend the visibility of all of it, because LinkedIn needs to get in other things into your feed, which I think is largely why we don't have a guarantee of the double bell initiative.
Yeah.
If we click too many, it kind of doesn't work, and then LinkedIn sort of stops it. So again, there's a nuance here, different strokes for different folks. It means that you've got to be sensitive about who you double bell, and then when the job's done, you go back and you think, well, and actually there's a self-monitoring process here, because you will keep seeing to some extent that person's content in the feed. This happens a lot. If people say, oh, you really need to follow so and so, and I follow them and I think, have I missed and not noticed that person's content, ever? And so I'll go and double bell them and think, am I enjoying this content? And if I'm not, I will then unbell, possibly even unfollow, because what's the point if I'm not enjoying it? So it's another way of creating your own experience on LinkedIn, which anything I can do personally to achieve that is thumbs up for me.
Yeah, and John says there's no bell dashboard. Unfortunately, that's the list of people. One other way, I mean, I use Sales Navigator, so I've got those people that I've saved, and I've got that. And I think that what we're talking about here is ways to avoid your natural instinct, which LinkedIn wants you to do, which is go onto the homepage, which is the feed of the things that they want you to see, and it's mutual connections of like to post it, then you're more likely to get involved. And you can, it's all about efficiency, isn't it? And one way of that I'm not and I haven't really got into the double belling. Mine's a mess as well. So I'm not using my notifications as well as you are, and you've inspired me there. But one thing that I have been advising people who don't have Sales Navigator to do is to search for posts. When you do the search bar, you can just click enter, or you can search for a keyword if you want to find posts from a certain keyword. But the most important thing is, if you have put a keyword in and you're looking for just any posts from a certain set of members, make sure that's blank in the search box. And then you've got post in the last 7 days from member, and you can add up to 25 people. And it's a bit time consuming, so you wouldn't want to do that every single time you go in. But once you've got that URL of that search, then you could just do a bookmark of your URL, and then you can go back to, you're probably going to be tracking more than 25 people, so you have a series of bookmarks. But that is a little workaround as well. I think the double bell is probably a bit easier to do, but it's an alternative.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Bookmarking specific lists is brilliant, because it's just one click and you're through to exactly the right content. Usually choose last 7 days as a working period, so you could create that list. Going to spend 10 minutes clicking on your bookmarks and have in front of you all the content from the people in the last 7 days, which is still available on your precise topics of interest. Absolutely brilliant strategy to make sure that you're in touch with that detail from the right people. It's all of these things, isn't it? It's double belling. It's just being in your home feed a bit, but following your notifications, making sure you're responsive to what's coming up with the right people. So this is, I think, people start off with such a number of things to do on LinkedIn that it's vast. But if you've got a particular goal in mind and a strategy of where you want to get to, then you just hone all these options that are available to you to fine tune a method of maximizing your time and efficiency to achieve that goal. And it's I guess good for people like us, that we have a broad understanding of all these options to help people achieve those goals. People who just log on to LinkedIn and just have an average day and don't really take an interest, don't know all this stuff, and sadly miss out from the the power of what's at your fingertips if only you knew how.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're about to wrap up, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention. First of all, Nigel, you have appeared on stage at the last two Uplift Lives, and I met you at the last Uplift Live. We had a lovely drink at the pre-party, pre-event, which I think every event should do that. Like all of the attendees get together the night before, because it was just brilliant, and I really enjoyed our chat. And I'm so pleased that we've been able to extend this live on LinkedIn. And so if you are a LinkedIn nerd, geek, or just starting your journey on LinkedIn, a whole day full of LinkedIn experts talking about that, get yourself there. That's March next year, but I know tickets are on sale already. And we're going to be adding to this report as we go forward towards the end of the year. As we can see, getting connected on LinkedIn is really wide. We've talked about how liking and commenting affects that. We're going to do a bit more research on that, how your profile impacts things, and there's various other things. Is there anything that you think that we should be testing, no matter how small, to make that report even better on its when it's reissued?
You know, I think we've had so many little elements of this conversation that bring those to the fore. I think you know, could we categorize the kind of influence we're wishing to have as a salesperson, as a thought leader? That would be a different approach. Yeah, it's rich, isn't it? You think on the top level, how can this, you know, have such a rich discussion around a topic which seems quite simple, connection request, but it is, you know, it's like life, nothing is simple, is it? So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing and dig a little deeper into those nuances. For me, it's that, you know, as I said early on, it depends what your goal is, what part of the journey you're on, and, you know, probably what your job title and position in the world is, as to what your strategy might be. Yeah, really interesting topic. So thanks for pursuing it. And yeah, lovely to meet you last time. I appeared on the stage twice. I wasn't a speaker twice. I simply moderated the question and answers in the last one. I think that was only because Gus was a speaker. So, but yeah,
you were a wonderful host. I enjoyed it a lot. Right, we're going to end the stream now. I'm sure we could probably chit chat all day long, but we'll have to do that. But bye for now. See you later.